Hi everyone! Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Brittany and this is where I like to talk about everything I like and don't like about horror movies. So for today's topic is kind of a controversial question, I would say. It can get people a little bit riled up and that is horror remakes. I have come up with 10 horror movies that really stuck in my brain. Not necessarily my top 10 favorites, but because that's really hard to choose and I'm sure I left a lot of good ones out of this video, so I will probably definitely be having to make a part 2. So first I need to mention Dawn of the Dead 2004. This one was directed by Zack Snyder. I first watched this remake growing up and thought this was like the best zombie movie I had ever watched at the time. Just recently I actually watched the original and I finally paid my respects to it. It was long overdue for me to watch it. Tom Savini made his debut as the special effects artist for George A. Romero. David Leroy Anderson and Heather Langenkamp were the special effects artists for the remake, and I think they did a really fantastic job displaying the decay over time and just the illness overall. Number 2 is House of Wax from 2005, directed by, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, Jaume? I'm sorry, call it Sarah, who also directed Orphan, which is super cool. I recently watched the original finally, and wow, it's so different, of course. So to me, I almost can't really compare the original and the remake because so many differences. The main, well, I don't know if I want to spoil this for people that haven't watched it, but there's like a main premise, but it's executed very differently. Such different time periods, and you could tell that the remake is more like influenced by the pop culture of that time. You know, you have Paris Hilton, Chad Michael Murray. Personally, I am a huge sucker for the remake. Just growing up on like TV and everything, this was a big deal to me, and this movie came out and I still watch it regularly. Also, the soundtrack is really cool. You have Deftones, you have My Chemical Romance. Also, the cast is super gorgeous and perfect in the remake. And I want to give major props to Paris Hilton. You know, I grew up watching her on The Simple Life, and I always thought she was so hilarious and iconic. And then when she was in this movie, I felt like kind of weird about it. But then when you actually see her performance, she's a great screamer, and I wouldn't have chosen anyone better for that role. Number 3 is Evil Dead 2013. Directed by Fede Alvarez. Sam Raimi created the original story as well as a short film prior to the Evil Dead called Within the Woods. This short film was used to pull in potential investors in his project. Fede Alvarez actually also directed Don't Breathe. Both movies star Jane Levi, and she really gives like a great performance. I have heard they have had some issues together, so I don't really know if they'll be working on a future movie, but I did think that he did pull something out of her that was really talented. The brutality was turned up several notches and there was so much blood. Number 4 is The Hills Have Eyes 2006, directed by Alexandra Aja. The original is by Wes Craven. To share the exact same story, the casting is like on point. They basically chose like doppelgangers to play the original characters, but there is like one huge difference. The original like villains of the first movie were just like desert people, kind of like caveman vibes, but in this remake they are actually mutated people from atomic bombs, so that kind of gave it like a wrong turn feeling. Number 5 is It 2017, directed by Andres Muschietti. The new Pennywise by Bill Skarsgård is absolutely insane. He's so creepy and so good at playing Pennywise. Obviously there's a major advantage in technology from the time period that this remake was made, so it's kind of like a remastered version almost. The Stephen King's adaptation was made for TV at the time, so it's more of just a mini series. This remake has become a major comfort film for me. I returned to it so many times, I lost track of how many times I've actually watched it. Number 6 is Halloween 2007, directed by Rob Zombie. The original, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, is one of my favorite horror films. One of the originals that really got me into the genre itself. Michael Myers is definitely my favorite slasher. So when the remake came out, I was super excited to watch it, and I do remember seeing it in theaters, being pretty shocked of how brutal this one turned out to be. Also, Danny Trejo's death is so freaking sad. I know it's like hard to watch. Number 7 is the Amityville Horror 2005, directed by Andrew Douglas, who also worked on Mindhunter. Now, to be totally frank, I often return to this remake because of Ryan Reynolds. He is like a god in this movie. Since this movie was remade in 2005, there was a lot of CGI being used, which I personally didn't mind. I thought it was executed very nicely. There are still also several original elements. I don't want to give away too much if you haven't seen this movie, but you do see more into why the house is haunted. I feel like this is one of the best remakes ever for a horror movie. The original is so iconic itself that it was even made into like a little parody skit on Scary Movie 2. I love those movies as well. Number 8 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, directed by Marcus Nispel. I just want to mention that there are some big major changes in this version. The last name was changed from Sawyer to Hewitt. That's really big. You don't really see the gas station, and there's not really any mention of the dad or grandpa or the brother. That being said, even despite those changes, this is still my second favorite Leatherface movie. I feel like the acting was just phenomenal from everybody, especially Jessica Biel. There's so many moments where you feel like this is real, like your heart is racing, and it's like the same feeling the original kind of gave me. Number 9 is The Fly 1986, directed by David Cronenberg, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Special effects in this version are just mind-boggling. I mean, I've never actually watched the original, but to me the original seemed like it was ahead of its time as well. I do know that Vincent Price himself stars in that, and it was just his birthday recently. My advice to you would be to never watch The Fly while eating. Number 10 is one that could be a little tough to talk about, and that is The Last House on the Left, 2009. Great year. Directed by Dennis Elatis. The original story and film was directed by Wes Craven. This was actually his debut as a director. I want to give a quick warning about this movie if you've never watched it. This one does deal with a lot of sexual assault and abuse, which can be extremely hard to watch at times. This version was so well shot, and every actor really put a lot into this. I really love Sarah Paxton. I loved watching her growing up. I loved Aquamarine, and so to see her in this movie and what she has to go through was traumatizing. Just feel so much pain for her. You want the revenge. When the parents finally do get revenge, it's so satisfying and so brutal. So I'm curious, which one out of these 10 is your favorite? In general, how do you feel about remakes? I know I can be on the fence about them. Sometimes they blow me away, and sometimes I don't feel like they needed to be made at all. Feel free to leave a comment down below, and as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!